meaningful change. In November of 1956, Guevara was aboard the ill-fated yacht Granma with 82 revolutionaries. This group sailed to Cuba hoping to ignite a new revolution, but the landing was disastrous. Most were killed or captured, but a core of 12 men managed to escape into the mountains. Castro and Guevara were amongst them. For the next 2 years, Guevara fought alongside Fidel Castro in a grueling guerrilla campaign against the Cuban government, led by military dictator Fulgencio Batista. The rebels hid in the mountains amongst the poor peasant farmers, building their support and their infrastructure. Guevara set up factories to build grenades, but also health clinics to look after the rebels and their supporters. Well aware of the power of the media, Guevara also set up a newspaper and a radio station, allowing the rebels to spread their message even further. Guevara was an invaluable member of this revolutionary force and was second in rank only to Castro. He soon earned a reputation as both a capable and ruthless military leader. Guevara would personally oversee the execution of suspected traitors, defectors, and informants, believing that such measures were necessary for the revolution to succeed. So too did Guevara oversee the execution of peasants who supported Batista. By late 1958, Batista's regime was collapsing. Castro's rebels had secured large areas of Cuba under their control and had won a great number of victories against Batista's forces. On the 20th of December 1958, Guevara led a decisive attack on the city of Santa Clara. With only 340 men, Guevara's forces were able to defeat almost 4,000 government troops, even capturing an armored train containing a great amount of weaponry, ammunition, and provisions. Thousands of government troops surrendered, fed up with the civil war, and the battle would soon be seen as a turning point in the conflict. On the 1st of January 1959, Batista fled Cuba, taking with him a fortune of $300 million, allowing Guevara and his forces to capture the capital of Havana the very next day. Castro arrived 6 days later and took control of Cuba, beginning communist rule over the country. Guevara's first role in this new regime was at La Cabana, an 18th century fortress turned prison, where he presided over revolutionary tribunals of war criminals. For 5 months, he oversaw the trials of thousands of people. Many were sentenced for their roles in the previous regime, either to prison or they were executed. Former government officials, police, and army personnel who had served Batista were rounded up and detained to await their trial. Loyalists to the Batista regime were purged from the army and the government. During this time, Guevara oversaw the execution of 176 people, taking part in the firing squads or carrying out the executions personally. In this new revolutionary government, Guevara continued being one of Castro's most trusted figures. He took on multiple roles, including head of the National Bank of Cuba, Minister of Industries, and a diplomat. Being one of the few well-educated members of the new government, Guevara threw himself into transitioning Cuba into a socialist state. His experiences as a guerrilla fighter, setting up clinics, factories, and schools would prove to be insufficient. He sought to centralize the economy, with people running the industries beholden to centralized government planners. Bureaucratic bottlenecks and a lack of incentive for efficiency and good performance meant output and quality dropped. Soon, Cuba was in economic decline when the United States of America barred trade to the country in 1961. Guevara's industrial reforms and collectivized farms yielded little, and the country resorted to rationing food. All of this led to Guevara playing a leading role in forging closer ties with the Soviet Union, securing economic and military support. In the end, the Cuban economy became dependent on the Soviet Union, trading its main crop of sugar for oil and manufactured goods. This relationship would culminate in the plan to bring Soviet nuclear missiles to Cuba, in what would become known as the Cuban Missile Crisis. Essentially, the Cuban Missile Crisis occurred in October of 1962. It was a tense 13-day standoff between the United States and the Soviet Union. This was triggered when the US discovered Soviet nuclear missiles being placed in Cuba, just 90 miles from its coast. The crisis ended peacefully, and the Soviets agreed to remove the missiles from Cuba and the US secretly agreed to remove some missiles it had in Turkey, and also promised not to invade Cuba. Ultimately, nuclear war was averted, and the missiles were never handed over to the Cubans. However, Guevara ranted to British journalist Sam Russell that it was a great shame the missiles had not arrived, and that they would have certainly fired them off. Guevara's hardline Marxist views would end up clashing with the more pragmatic policies of Castro. Despite the economic issues his policies had caused, he continued to advocate for rapid industrialization and strict central planning, often at the expense of Cuba's fragile economy. Guevara still took time to embark on worldwide tours, speaking his revolutionary message. He would take part in interviews with international journalists and deliver speeches to those he thought would engage in anti-capitalist revolution. He spoke of starting multiple Vietnam Wars, conflicts that would weaken American and Western imperialism, and also encourage popular, violent revolt. He visited the People's Republic of China, North Korea, Algeria, Ghana, Guinea, Mali, and Tanzania. By the mid-1960s, Guevara grew restless in Cuba. He believed Cuba's revolution was only the beginning. To truly defeat imperialism, he believed that similar uprisings needed to ignite across Latin America, Africa, and Asia. He decried both the US and the Soviet Union as imperialists, using developing countries as pawns in the Cold War, regardless of human cost. But then in 1965, following a speech in Algeria, he mysteriously disappeared from public life. Castro later revealed that Guevara had left Cuba to spread revolution abroad. His first stop was the Congo, where he led an Afro-Cuban force in supporting leftist rebels fighting against the Western-backed government. Guevara believed that if the African continent could be encouraged into armed revolution, Western imperialism would be finally toppled. He stayed there for 7 months, but was hampered by the CIA, who were well aware of his actions and keen to prevent any armed revolutions he might inspire. Eventually, Guevara's efforts were defeated, and he was forced to move on to another target. In 1966, Guevara would move on to Bolivia, his last attempt to ignite a revolution. For 11 months, he tried in vain to gain popular support. Guevara and his small group of Cuban rebels were distrusted by the Bolivians, and he never gained popular support. Even the Bolivian Communist Party didn't want to associate or support him. They were more aligned with the Soviet Union than to Cuba. And before too long, everything began to fall apart. Guevara's forces were split into different groups, but they were each hunted down, one by CIA-trained Bolivian government forces. In his diary, Guevara would write down how he knew he had little chance of surviving Bolivia. His asthma had become chronic, and his notoriety painted a very large target on his head. He wrote that he would either succeed or he would die. On the 8th of October 1967, Guevara's band of rebels were ambushed near the village of La Higuera. An informant had divulged the location of Guevara's camp, and a force of 200 soldiers were dispatched. Newly trained Bolivian rangers ambushed the group with mortar and machine gun fire. Surrounded, Guevara attempted to flee, but he suffered a wound to his calf. While attempting to escape, he walked straight into an enemy command post, and he was swiftly captured. On his surrender, he reportedly told the soldiers, "I am Che Guevara. I am worth more to you alive than dead." During the firefight, 9 Bolivian soldiers and 11 of Guevara's rebels were killed. Guevara and some of the dead rebels were taken to and held in a school. The next morning, the Bolivian soldiers received orders from the president that Guevara was to be executed. There was to be no trial where he could preach his revolutionary rhetoric. However, this was reportedly counter to American plans to interrogate him further. The following day, on the 9th of October 1967, Guevara was briefly interrogated as to the whereabouts of his remaining rebels. With no information revealed, the plan to carry out his execution began, but not before his captors took a few photographs. The plan was to execute him in a manner that would appear as if he died in the firefight. Sergeant Mario Turan was selected to carry out the killing. Guevara reportedly faced his death with calm defiance. Witnesses later claimed that his last words were, "I know you've come to kill me. Shoot, coward. You were only going to kill a man." Turan fired multiple shots, first hitting his arms and legs. As Guevara wreathed on the ground, Turan fired again. executing the revolutionary. In all, he suffered 9 bullet wounds all over his body. Guevara's body was then displayed publicly in a nearby town. To prevent his grave from becoming a shrine, the Bolivian military secretly buried his remains in an unmarked location. They would not be discovered until 1997, when his bones were exhumed and returned to Cuba for a state funeral. The death of Che Guevara sent shockwaves around the world. For revolutionaries and leftist movements, he became a martyr and a symbol of resistance against imperialism. His writings, especially his call for creating 2, 3, many Vietnams, inspired generations of guerrilla fighters and activists. His famous photograph, taken by Alberto Corda, would become one of the most reproduced images in history, plastering many student walls and t-shirts. It transformed Che into a global pop culture icon and a commodity, often separated from his violent life and his ideology. However, Che Guevara's legacy remains deeply contested, from his role in overseeing executions during the Cuban Revolution to his unwavering belief.
Yeah, it was a really violent revolutionary.
Was political violence. His story is one of profound contradictions. He was a doctor who took up arms, a violent revolutionary who inspired millions, whilst waging guerrilla warfare wherever he could, and he remains one of the most recognizable figures of the 20th century.
Everybody knew about him. Somebody else killed this Dark Elemental already. Son of a bitch. I didn't know it was going to turn. It was good.
I had a buddy. Ty, let me ask you this, dude. So with I had a buddy who's trying to get into streaming. I met him at the Catholic Prayer Conference. He does magic. He's a really cool dude. And he sent me the thing we talked about the other day, the Ludwig thing, where he tried to stream with no viewers and start over and not use his name, you know. Mm-hmm. And then Ludwig, I think, talked after about just how hard discoverability is on Twitch. What do you think they can do better to make it more discoverable, if you agree with that?
I mean, it's not that I don't agree with it. It's just not going to happen anymore. Like, they don't, like, Twitch doesn't need people to find someone with no viewers and make them have 100 viewers, right? Like, that isn't, they don't benefit from that, essentially.
So
right?
They're not prioritized. So that's why I don't prioritize what you're saying.
I mean, but that's the thing. It's not like, I don't know how to explain it. I do know how to explain it. It's always the streamer's job to get viewers. And back in the day, there was no one really, there weren't that many people streaming. So it was easier to build a following. But like, there's like, it's not Twitch's, again, I don't know how to make it like sound, like articulate what I'm trying to say without sounding like a dick. But at the end of the day, like, it's up to you to stream and get the viewers and figure out how to build a community. It's not Twitch's job, right? And nowadays, the platform has changed.
I like what he said. I agree.
And you really do have to utilize social media and TikTok and Instagram and YouTube Shorts and build your content there and direct them to your live stream. That's been the case for a long time now, and it's still the same case. The only way to get more viewers, I mean, like, could they make it so that, like, if you're like a niche streamer playing like a niche game, could they make it so that, like, you know, you can find, like, it's easier to find like those types of games or streamers, but like then that would require you as a viewer, when you log into Twitch, filling out something like these are the games I'm interested in, or like, you know what I mean, like, and then they can be like, oh, we recommend these streamers for you then, or like, you know, here's the category of the game that you want, and like kind of spoon feed you it. But even back in the day, like, it still wasn't easy. Like, you had to put in 8 hours, you had to be streaming more than that in order to get viewers. And now it's like, it's easier. It's literally easier. I actually think it's easier to get viewers now than it was back then. If you are funny and are good at editing and are talented, like, look at Queso, dude. Queso is a prime example of somebody who was just funny, entertaining, had crazy funny clips that he was posting on TikTok and on social media for like scary games that he was playing. And then boom, like, he popped off, right? Like, eventually started streaming, and like everyone was like, oh my gosh, he's actually live. Like, and now he's one of the biggest streamers on the platform. Like, he did it exactly how you're supposed to do it now. And people are sitting here like, oh, I stream for 8 hours and get 1 viewer. It's like, yeah, no shit, dude.
Yeah, but you got to put the time in to grow the clip. In fact, like you always said.
But you don't even have to stream. You can just record.
Well, you always says what you do off stream that is live.
Yes, I mean there's reaching out and collaborating with viewers and streamers that are like slightly bigger than you. If you have one viewer, I don't know, try to find someone with 10, and like share your community together. That there's also shared viewing, right? Like there are ways to grow your exposure like from the platform, like with shared viewing and obviously collaborating with other smaller streamers and trying to share your audience with one another. Like I always recommended starting, you don't want to be like, oh, I'm gonna be the next Fortnite streamer and go into like the most dense space on the platform, right? Like I wouldn't recommend what is my aim? I wouldn't recommend playing League of Legends and being like, I'm gonna be a League streamer and just like starting with League or starting with Call of Duty. So like starting with some of the most popular games on the platform. Like, oh, I'm just gonna start streaming Counter-Strike. It's like,
yeah.
I mean, technically, I didn't even plan on doing it, but Halo, like, there weren't a lot of people. There were like less than 50 people streaming Halo at the time when I started, and that's because just no one played it. It had a really small ceiling. There weren't a lot of people that were watching it either, so like it was easy for me to like get 5 viewers, then 10 viewers, then 20 viewers. And I mean, I still think that can work. Streaming in smaller category niche games where there aren't a lot of people there, so the discoverability goes up. And yeah, your ceiling is lower, and there aren't a lot of people that are watching. But like, are you trying to get 10 viewers or not? Like, be funny, be good, beyond. I mean, there's so many like, there are a lot. There are guys doing it in Marvel Rivals, right? They're like top 500 Celestia players streaming 24/7, and all they're doing is making content on TikTok constantly and streaming on TikTok, and they're saying, "I'm the number one player here. I'm the number one player here. Come watch me." And like, they're building audiences that way. But it starts with just content. You have to make good, fun, entertaining, interesting content. You have to post it on TikTok, YouTube Shorts, Instagram Reels, and like, make sure that your hashtags are right. Make sure that the content's right. Make sure that you're cooking, and you're not just, just live 8 hours, not talking to viewers. You don't have any, with a terrible webcam quality, bad mic quality, and you're sitting here, nothing to offer. You're in gold, and you're a gold player in League of Legends, so you're not even close to being the top 1% of like, you know what I mean? It's like, it's that mindset of like, oh, I've been live for 8 hours and I have no viewers. What's happening? Like, why aren't I getting viewers? It's like, what do you mean? What, like, people aren't just gonna be like, and people like, oh, it's Twitch's job for you to come find me. Like, no. They need to make it so you can find me that I'm live. Like, that's literally never how it was back in the day. 10 years ago, 14 years ago, it wasn't Twitch's job to be like, hey, this streamer's here. Look at these small streamers. You just fucking grinded.
Dude, Queso's crazy, man. Like
he's a perfect example, man.
He is, and like I'll go watch him play. I'm like, this guy has 50,000 viewers. He's playing a game that looks like it was made by a 10-year-old, and everyone loves it.
A lot of those games are like made by people. I mean, they're like $1, right? Like he plays like random scary games that have like a couple reviews on Steam, and he just.
Did you see the clip of him finding himself in that video game?
Yeah.
Oh my god. Dude, his reaction was so good.
And then eventually you just get so big, right? Like him, and like where it's over. Like you don't even have to try anymore. You just go live and your community does all the work. You just react to clips, dude. Like, you stream one game for 4 hours, not even 2 hours. That you got 100 clips.
I'm getting towards 500 gold. I think I'm halfway. 50. If I could get 50 gold for these stacks, 50. Probably not. It's probably like more like 30. Yeah, this will take a long time, but I mean,
From that playthrough, like at that point, it's just like a finely tuned machine, just constantly pumping out content. Right? Yeah, you got PO opening. I mean, Jinxie does the same shit, right? Jinxie opens, stuff sent from his viewers, and then that just creates pure content right from that, right? It's Jeffrey. I will say it is interesting to see a lot of people's viewers. There are certain streamers' viewerships that have plummeted since the view botting changed. I think it's going to continue to happen.
I've never view botted, never will.
But I mean, I knew I wasn't getting view botted. Trust me. I don't think the botters are going to find work. I mean, here's the thing. I don't know enough about ViewBot to even like speculate on it.
Me neither.
I mean, I definitely know that it exists. Oh, they're not cheaters though. A lot of people sometimes people are getting ViewBot without even knowing. Like I have no control.
Are doing it too. Sponsors are doing
Yeah,
it.
sponsors are doing it. I mean, listen, it exists. I'm happy that Twitch is cracking down on it, and I hope they continue to do so. There's just so many. I mean, dude, here's the thing, man. Streaming. What the heck's going on here, bro?
I'll come back.
I feel like streaming right now has just become so much about viewership and not about the content. And I mean, it's just incredibly toxic. I mean, I've been getting flamed for the last like 5 years about my viewership and trolls coming in constant around me. Oh, this person is 10, this person is 20, this person is sleeping and has 20,000 viewers. LOL, bro, fell off. It's like, why does that matter? It never used to be about that. It was just about
Nope.
making clips.
I don't
gaming,
care
and
about
having
that.
Fun. Tifu quit because, I mean, Turner's a gamer, bro, but he's like a gamer second. I've always said this. The dude, like, he literally is catching fish, deep sea fishing, and then diving them into the ocean and putting them back into the water, right? Where there could be sharks around. Like, that's Turner. That's always been Turner. Dude jumped off bridges. Like, he was a psycho first, a gamer second.
What games, besides Fortnite, what games was he really good at?
H1Z1.
He played H1?
H1 and Fortnite were really the only two games where he was like that. Like I think we had a history in. Yeah, brother, my viewership is not what it used to be for so many different reasons. But like I had it, Jess told me this all the time too, and I've had people tell me this as well. Like I was walking through Target shopping, and there were these two people. There were two kids like in their 20s, like early 20s. They walk up to me, and I get this all the time, bro. I used to watch you all the time. I'm like, thanks, man. And then he goes, hey, man, but grew up, right? Like my viewers have grown up with me. I've been streaming for 14 years. And I haven't gotten new. I want to finish. I haven't gotten new ones. Like at the end of the day, like I haven't like blown up again, right? If that makes sense. Well, you know what I mean. Like I haven't like got another game that I've like grabbed a new younger audience, get that influx of viewership again. And I mean, I'm also not grinding games to do that.
No, I don't care about that.
If there was like think about it like this, bro. Fortnite's been out for what, 8 years?
Yeah.
Like. If there were
I feel sad that somebody tried to pitch me Fortnite. I don't remember who it was. Somebody in my WoW crew was like, dude, you have to play Fortnite. It's so good. It's so good. And I was like, I don't know. I don't think so. And he was like, it's free. It's free. You got to play it. Any WoW player would love Fortnite. And he was right. He was right about that. But I ignored Fortnite for like 5 years because I was just like, I don't think Fortnite is it. I don't think it's it. I don't think I need a shooter. But then I ended up really liking Fortnite.
That were 13 years old watching me play Fortnite back in the day.
For one thing, the gunplay always has felt really honest to me.
Now they could be married with kids.
Yeah.
They are married with kids, yeah.
And a lot of those guys will stay with you. Like my audience is mostly my age and older, or slightly younger, right? But there's a lot stay with you. You've had a lot that have been there the whole time, but
yeah, absolutely.
Not all of them will.
Right. Again, guys, like I'm not saying that, like, yeah,
one of them's the best baseball player in the world.
Some will come back, dude, right? Like some will come back, and that's great too. But like, if people just don't have time, they don't have time. And again, I could go back and talk about all the things and the decisions that I've made over the last like 5 years that have definitely led to me not having as many viewers. But I don't regret anything, man. I'm happy where I'm.
Good. Yep, it's a good way to look at it. Oh no.
In this country, we have local and state police for law enforcement, not federal troops. Stop deploying the U.S. Army against Americans. I don't think Americans are going to like this. No matter how much smoke to have for Portland, like, with the exception of, like, maybe 20% of Trump's base, there are 100% people that were in the military in the past, people that are still in the military, people that have family members that are in the military that are going to look at this and be like, all right, dude. And number two, they're going after Portland, Oregon. Now, the reason why I think this is funny, and the reason why I'm saying this has nothing to do with, like, current needs, right? Like, they're not even trying to manufacture a crisis and then try to tackle that crisis militarily. They're just going after Portland because Portland has been an unhealed wound in the minds of national conservatives. They just constantly pointed to Portland. Portland's always on fire. Portland is out of control. Portland's going crazy. We got to do something about it. And Donald Trump did in 2020. He literally sent BORTAC units, the SWAT team, basically, for ICE, to go to the streets of Portland and black bag people, okay? Just like literally apprehend them in the streets in unmarked vans with military gear. They did that, okay? But Portland right now, there's nothing going on.
Sorry,
like,
Kitty, I didn't mean to bump
there's
you.
protests, right? There's ongoing protests against ICE, but it's happening in every city.
Love you.
Like,
Sorry.
there's nothing particularly unpleasant that's taking place in Portland currently that isn't taking place everywhere else, from Illinois to Los Angeles, in Chicago to Los Angeles, to many other parts of the country where there are ICE apprehensions taking place. The only reason why he just came out of nowhere and decided that Portland has to be tackled with the military is because they just don't like Portland. That's it. It's just that Portland is like a symbol for what conservatives despise about their neighbors and their politics. Okay. Also, doesn't this feel like a distraction, or am I tweaking? No, these are not distractions. If it's an actual initiative by the federal government to like exercise military power over certain areas that they just don't like because of the politics demonstrated by said areas, that is not a distraction. That is the main course, okay? That is the actual event. This is the actual event, okay? And here we are. We're obviously going to talk about the new NSPM 7 labels, common beliefs as terrorism indicators. It's just like anti-capitalism, anti-fascism, things of that nature. Basically, whatever you hear at the Hasselheimer broadcast is now considered a indicator. Wonderful. Anyway, let's take a look.
Here to live now from Fox, we do have some breaking news for you. We're learning here that President Trump is going to be sending troops to Portland, Oregon. Here's what we're learning. He said today he's going to send those troops there to handle, quote, domestic terrorists as he expands his deployments to more American cities. He made the announcement on social media, and we're going to share that post here with you right now. Let's read it. It says, at the request of Secretary of Homeland Security Kristi Noem, I am directing Secretary of War Pete Hegseth to provide all necessary troops to protect war-ravaged Portland and any of our ICE facilities under siege from attack by Antifa and other domestic terrorists. I'm also authorizing full force if necessary. Thank you for your attention to this matter. This just coming out on Truth Social moments ago. President Trump said the decision, as you just heard there, was necessary to protect U.S. immigration and customs enforcement facilities, which he described as under siege from attack. Now, since the assassination of Charlie Kirk, President Trump has escalated his efforts to confront what he calls the, quote, radical left, which he blames for the country's problems with political violence. Earlier in September, President Trump had described living in Portland as, quote, like living in hell, and said he was considering sending in federal troops, as he has recently threatened to do, to combat crime in other cities, including Chicago and Baltimore. He deployed the National Guard to Los Angeles over the summer and as part of his law enforcement takeover in the District of Columbia. In Tennessee, Memphis has been bracing for an influx of National Guard troops. And just yesterday, Republican Governor Bill Lee said they will be part of a surge of resources to fight crime in the city. So once again, we are learning more about this here, as this did just come into our newsroom. If there's any more developments, we're going to bring them to you here on Live Now from Fox.
Portland is being invaded by the United States of America. There it is, folks. There you have it. Pentagon officials don't know what force language is not a term commonly used in the Pentagon. No clarity on whether this means active duty troops or National Guard involved. No clarity on whether Trump intends to invoke the Insurrection Act despite the lack of any kind of major rebellion. Pentagon officials, according to Dan Lamothe, who does military affairs at Washington Post, Pentagon officials are seeking clarity on what President Trump means with this post about military forces going into Portland. They have no information to provide at the moment. At the request of Secretary of Homeland Security Kristi Noem, I'm directing Secretary of War Pete Hegseth to provide all necessary troops to protect war-ravaged Portland and any of our ICE facilities under siege from attack by Antifa and other domestic. I'm also authorizing full force if necessary. Thank you for attention to this matter. The less popular that they get in the eyes of the population, the more aggressive they get.
Yep.
Okay? Like, people are like, hey, man, we don't like this. Can you fix the grocery prices, please? The more people go, dude, what is this? What is going on? I don't like this. Please fix the housing crisis. The more they go, oh, do you want... You want me to be more aggressive. That's what I'm hearing from you. I'm hearing from you that you want me to kill people in Portland with the military. Oh, you want to kill American citizens with the American
Portland.
military as a domestic police force. Got it. That's what you want. It seems like that's the command here. That's what you wanted from me, and that's what you're going to get. Now, this is the reason why I was stressing the importance of not following an unlawful order if you are active duty. Just something to consider. Okay? It is literally in your oath. You pledge an oath to the Constitution. You do not, under any circumstance, have to follow unconstitutional and unlawful orders. Okay? Brother, you must be the most vindicated man on this planet. Wallah. Yeah, but it doesn't feel good because there is no cause to celebrate because I'm always predicting the worst shit happening. So when the worst shit does inevitably happen, there is no moment where you go, well, I told you. There's no I told you so moment. In any case, I'm gonna put that jacket on purpose. It's a Ralph Lauren jacket. But yeah, Antifa Brigadier Commander at your service. Here it is. Anyway, I guess we can celebrate their incompetence overall. Once again, they are still trying, but this does actually make their efforts. This actually does harm their efforts in general, I think. Because like, I try to imagine what a competent administration would do in this moment. And I think first they would have to do like a psyop, you know what I mean? Maybe even multiple false flag attacks or something to just like present an imminent threat. Because right now there isn't a lot of appetite for this kind of action by the broader public. Of course, there's this kind of action. There's appetite for this kind of action from like really, really hardline conservative areas that have like imagined a universe where Portland is on fire and they need to be punished by the American military so we can like stamp out any sort of like liberalism and leftism that is an imminent threat. But those numbers are not consequential enough. They're not big enough. And even those people will lose their appetite once they see it in action. Here, my Antifa commander hat. I'm going to go to prison, dude. I keep this shit up. I'm going to prison, dog. That's what's going to happen. Need a metal rack like Marshall Zukov to complete the outfit, roll up to the White House asking what you're going to do for some lubrication around here. Anyway.
And we continue to follow our breaking news. Just a short time ago, President Trump announcing on Truth Social that he is sending troops to Portland, Oregon to protect ICE facilities. Now, Portland is just the latest Democratic-run city that the president has either sent or threatened to send troops to in his growing crackdown on immigration and on crime. CNN's Kevin Liptak joins us now from the White House. Kevin, tell us, what more have you been learning about these latest developments here?
Yeah, and there's no question this is an escalation in the president's push to deploy the U.S. military on domestic soil. It follows this pattern. We saw it in Los Angeles. We saw it here in Washington, D.C. Of the president choosing Democrat-led cities and states to make this push and really kind of pushing the boundaries of the use on domestic soil of the U.S. military. The president writing on Truth Social this morning that at the request of Secretary of Homeland Security Kristi Noem, I am directing Secretary of War Pete Hegseth to provide all necessary troops to protect war-ravaged Portland and any of our ICE facilities under siege from attack by Antifa and other domestic terrorists. I am also authorizing full force if necessary. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Now, there are a lot of unanswered questions here. One is the timeline, when exactly we would see these troops arrive into Oregon. We also don't know what types of troops the president is talking about here, whether it's National Guard, whether it's active. We don't know exactly what legal authorities the president will be relying on, because remember, under law, it sharply limits the use of U.S. troops for domestic law enforcement purposes, and this has really kind of prompted a legal debate after the president did this in other cities around the country. Now, Portland has seen a number of protests around an ICE facility that's about 2 miles south of the downtown. They have been mostly peaceful.
For the record, this will turn into like the goal here is to develop so much resentment and foment so much discontent as a reaction to this ridiculous initiative that it does escalate. It's a provocation. Make no mistake, this is 100% clear-cut a fucking provocation. Mr. President, read the Constitution. The function of the U.S. military is to protect us from foreign enemies, not Portland, Oregon. In this country, we have local and state police for law enforcement, not federal troops. Stop deploying the U.S. Army against Americans. I don't think Americans are going to like this. No matter how much smoke motherfuckers have for Portland, like, with the exception of, like, maybe 20% of Trump's base, there are 100% people that were in the military in the past, people that are still in the military, people that have family members that are in the military, they're going to look at this and be like, all right, dude, what the fuck are we doing? Dial it back. The only people that will get excited at this is going to be a marginal part of Trump's base. And he doesn't have support to lose right now. I think this chips away at his approval rating. I think this chips away at his approval rating pretty significantly. This is, again, an overreaction from an administration that is fearful. This is an overreaction from an administration that recognizes that they're kind of weak. Why would they care? What do you mean? This is the type of shit that, like, Americans still care about. Like Americans care about the
Americans
military.
care.
Like, the average Americans, they think like, oh yeah, the military is like protecting us, you know, from foreign enemies. Like, that's the goal. Like, when they do stuff like this, it kind of betrays. They care about the optics. It betrays the fundamental reason for why the military exists. You know, in their minds, it's like they don't have to think about what the military is doing in Iraq, but like in their minds, there is like there's this idea that like at least they're doing like they're doing it to protect us, right? It's a false notion, regardless, but like they believe it anyway. Foreign and domestic, dumbass.
Yeah, we give the armed services the benefit of the doubt. We do.
Portland, Oregon on a regular.
We're like,
Tuesday.
we expect you're doing what we expect you to do, you know, that like you're an American, you know? Yeah, like we do. We expect the American armed services to do as they do. We don't really actually question them almost ever.
Oh, that's not what that means. You don't, it's literally unconstitutional without an insurrection taking place, which is ironic that Donald Trump is doing it, but I'm not going to get too far into that part too. But like, it's ridiculous to be like, I've just decided I'm invading Portland with the military because I'm bored. Okay? Do you understand how fucking stupid that is? I mean, it's stupid. It's so stupid that even the dumbest American will look at that and go, this is a little crazy. I can't see this going well for Donald Trump. I haven't been wrong so far. So we'll see. I think his disapproval dips even further after this.
But there have been some violent clashes that have led to injuries for federal officers. It's led to arrests.
They did it to LA and his base didn't care. You're wrong. You're wrong. It slowly but surely makes this a story. LA was the beginning. Then he did it to DC. Then he tried to do it to Chicago. There was a lot of pushback. So he's like, all right, we'll scale back from Chicago. Every single time he does this, there are more and more people that go, what the fuck are we doing? Do you understand? Like, every single time he does this, there are more people that go, this is objectively unserious. Liberals look at it and go, okay, there is a severe crisis here. We have to take to the streets. Apolitical people go, what the fuck are we doing? This is so insincere. This is so silly. It's the same reason why they look at like Kash Patel leading the FBI and go, I don't trust this institution anymore. It doesn't seem like there are serious people in charge. That's what the apolitical people are seeing when they look at this. And the more these kinds of images take place all around the country, the more discontent grows.
Of some of the protesters, at one point, a guillotine was erected outside the building to Homeland.
Trust me, we all love it, dumbass. As a vet, we love it. Trust me, we all love it. Y'all's approval rating. Who's y'all, first of all? Are you talking about me? Because I'm not a representative of the Democratic Party. As a matter of fact, I am very angry at the Democratic Party. I'm on the disapproval side on the Democratic Party, and everyone in my community is on the side that disapproves of the Democratic Party, which is why it's down to fucking 30%. I think the faster you Yeah, you socialist fuck. Yeah, I think the faster you snap out of this like left-right dichotomy that you exist under, and then realize that like I care more about policies than anything else. I care more about like the legislative agenda than anything else. I care more about making sure that you get proper health care, for example, than anything else. The faster you will be able to understand what I'm talking about here. I don't really give a shit about any of these things. I don't care about the Democratic Party. I don't defend it unconditionally. Okay. As a matter of fact, I'm very critical of the Democratic Party. But I do like that you're generalizing all vets and like, as a vet, we love it. All the vets in my gun club love it. We're all divorced dads with nothing else going on in our lives. So we think when the government is behaving in this way, no, the faster you stop bitching and leave to the UK to live in a socialism life, you'll be happy. He said the UK. He said I need to escape this country and go to the UK to experience socialism. Oh, brother. If only you knew. I do believe this guy's a vet, though, for sure, because he is so fucking stupid. Remember when I said not all vets are equal? Okay, not all vets are the same, and that I don't automatically shit on vets across the board, but I do when they explain to me that they're a dumb fuck. This is the dumb fuck that I was talking about. Fucking crayon eating moron. Yeah, you socialist fuck. I bet you'd love socialism in the United Kingdom. This is, by the way, this is the reason why when you go to basic training, one of the first things they teach you is how to fucking wash yourself, okay? How to brush your teeth. You might be like, what the fuck? That's what they teach? Yeah, dude, it's for this fucking clown ass. And he still didn't learn, okay? All right. This guy's awesome. You're dope, Chatter. Twizzy210.
Security department said at the time that was unhinged behavior. And we've also seen President Trump talk about this city over the last week. He said on Thursday in the Oval Office that we're going to get out there. He said, quote, we're going to do a pretty big number on those people in Portland. He called them professional agitators and anarchists. And you saw in his Truth post, social post today referencing Antifa, the president has taken steps this week to label that group a terrorist organization. Now, leaders in Portland have made pretty clear that they are not welcoming federal intervention. The mayor said this week that, like mayors across the country, I have not asked for and do not need federal intervention. That's the mayor, Keith Wilson. We've also heard from leaders in the city and state just last.
He's a Kai Cenat fan who also fucking. He's a Big Dog is a Kai Cenat fan who also happens to be replying to people about
Dark
how George
clusters,
Floyd was
a lot of
scumbag.
them.
Bro, he's a child. He's not a child. He's a boomer, I think. God, it fucking the mind of some people fascinate me, dude. That's awesome. Like in between replying to people about how George Floyd was a scumbag, he was a drug addict. He's like, hell yeah, Castanat reached 240,000 subscribers. I love that. That's my goat right there. Oh, fuck yeah. This is what I voted for. Hell yeah. Look, he just keeps reposting Castanat. That's all his output is. That's probably why he's on Twitch. He's like, I love Castanat and I love the Donald Trump administration killing my enemies, domestic and foreign. Yo, this guy is awesome. He's posting W or L chat in the Kaizenat chat to like 12-year-olds while simultaneously talking about how the American military has to start killing these goddamn radical Antifa. Respect. You know that motherfucker failed the ASVAB, okay? Didn't even... His score was 1.
Tonight, as it seemed clear that this was happening, listen to some of what they said.
I am sick and tired of watching the people in my community getting brutalized because they are immigrants or because they dare to speak up. I am sick and tired of it, and I'm tired of your lip service. Show up and do something!
Well, I share their frustration. We're trying to use every power we
Wait,
have.
you found his logs in Kai's chat?
Obviously, we're in the minority.
There he is, Jeff Merkley.
Badass little kid. Toad a phone. Give Toad his phone. Coach races. Races coach. Got timed out. Feet, toes, dogs out. Feet out, toes. You racist. Nah, fuck that. Shit up, bitch. Car races, racist. Sure, you pussy. Car races, on God. I would have beat your ass. You lucky it wasn't me. Hey, yo. Wait, is he still in here? I love this guy. Oh my God, this is my new favorite chatter, man. Oh my God. Oh, hell yeah. That's a child, dude. Come on. No, I don't think that's a child. I don't think this is a child at all. I think this is a whole ass adult who behaves like a child online, but you think a 12-year-old gives a fuck about George Floyd one way or another? What are you, crazy? No, this is like a 40-year-old, most likely Hispanic, Iraq war veteran, okay? That's like, in my mind, that's the profile. Anyway. Respect to this guy, though, for sure. Keep scrolling. I'm invested now. Remember 9/11? Charlie Kirk. Fuck Fortnite. Charlie. Long live Charlie Kirk. Wait, what? He's English? Okay, maybe he's not Hispanic. I was wrong. How does that? Wait, what? I don't know. Why isn't he responding? Chatter. Wait, is he like a British guy LARPing as an American soldier online? Oh my God. He's a 11-month subscriber too. He says Twizzy210 subscribed to tier 1. They've subscribed for 11 months. Apologize to his Hispanics. Well, I just thought from the fucking photo I saw. Oh my God, is that like a British? What is this? This is the Hodge twins. Here's his tweet. It's insane. Where'd he go? Why isn't he responding? I wish he wasn't so shy. Come back, dude. We love you. Actually, I do. I unironically love you. His Twitch bio says he's the Hispanic queso. Oh my God. Okay, we're back. Clocked him. Don't fucking play with me. Don't fucking play with me, dude. Don't play with me. Don't do it. I wish he was still in here. God damn it. He's a Hispanic Englishman? No, you can't be both. It's one of the biggest L's for the UK is like the significant lack of Hispanic people, Latino people as a whole. That's like, you immediately feel that in the air. When you land in the UK, that's like one of the first things you recognize, especially if you're like from
There's
Los
no
Angeles.
Hispanic people here.
You feel it. You feel it in every fucking street corner. You feel it with the food. Straight up. It's a big L. Anyway, let's get back to this.
So you also heard Jeff Merkley and other officials there say, essentially, don't take the bait, raising the prospect that sending these troops into Portland could be essentially an effort to try and goad them into conflict. And so it will be very interesting to see how this plays out over the coming days, over the coming week, just as we learn more about what specifically this federal intervention might look like, Danny.
Yeah, very interesting indeed. Appreciate you breaking that down for us, Kevin. Thank you.
That was particularly active in anti-psychedelic reporting. This group called Symposia, they've actually advised people to start engaging in terrorist tactics. It just kept getting worse and worse and worse. The problem was that these people were uncontrollable. They were seriously insane. One of the people is pretending to be indigenous and was outed for lying to the FDA and beating her boyfriend with a broom. The other one distributed underage revenge pornography and stalked ex-girlfriend. The other is living with his wife, who is a co-worker, which I think is ethically questionable. And the other dedicated her life to trying to destroy an indigenous man who she had consensual sex with, but could only get New York Magazine to publish it because every other magazine wanted to speak with the person who's being accused. New York Magazine was the only publication that lacks enough standards to allow this to be published. And one of them, I don't know, he's probably just gonna be like a freelance psycho harassing people on Twitter.
And those are the core Symposia members?
Yeah.
Those are the people that stopped MDMA from being legal for use for PTSD therapy?
It's almost inspiring if it weren't so horrible.
All right, we're here right now with an extremely special guest, Mr. Hamilton Morris. Thank you so much for joining the
Thank you
podcast
for
today,
having
man.
me.
We're going to get into some super spicy, potentially lawsuit-inducing conversation pretty soon. But before we get into that, for those who don't know, can you tell the people about, what you do and what you're working on right now?
Yes, I made a documentary series about psychoactive drugs for many years, over a decade. Humanity has a complex relationship with psychoactive substances. Come with me as I travel the world to study their chemistry and impact on society. And while I was doing that, I also worked in a lab and created new psychedelics. Did that full-time for years, invented a bunch of new psychedelic drugs, published them in scientific journals occasionally, and now I'm totally independently making documentaries about the chemistry of psychedelics that you can watch on my Patreon.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
We got to make the people pay for that. How much is it per month?
$5.
All right, we're going to put the link in the description. If you're watching this, you actually have to get Hamilton's Patreon. It's required if you guys want to continue to watch this programming. What's the next one you got coming out, man?
It's a massive scale LSD chemistry project, or something very close to LSD. I created a new LSD type molecule with this chemist, Alex Stratford, and then we tested it and learned a lot about how LSD is made.
Who was the first guy to make it?
Albert Hoffman. Yeah.
And Timothy Leary was the first guy to publicize information about it?
He was the first real LSD evangelist. Arguably, there was actually there were some people before him. I mean, it's a pretty dazzling chemical. Most of the people that tried it, including Albert Hoffman, were blown away because the experience is pretty damn wild. But Leary was the one who was able to make it into a media event. I love Timothy Leary. He's extremely funny, I think. People hate on him now because they think his lack of seriousness and scientific rigor somehow destroyed the psychedelic movement, but I think that's a pretty dumb take.
Yeah. The psychedelic movement has definitely reached a crescendo in the past maybe 10, 15 years, right?
Oh, yeah.
I'm doing an ayahuasca trip tonight. Literally changed who I am. You ever did mushrooms?
Jessa Common says ketamine therapy changed her life.
My inclination would be to make this available at least in therapeutic settings and maybe more generally.
I remember when I first started watching your show back in the day on Vice, which was called Hamilton's Pharmacopoeia, you were one of the first people that I could see who had publicly available documentaries talking about drugs that were not that widely discussed at that time.
Yeah, it's weird because at that point there were very few people doing it, despite there being a huge audience for it. Like, it was this obscure subject that anytime I made anything about it, millions of people would watch it. So there was clearly an appetite for it, and then that interest just kept growing, yet it remained a subject that was treated as if it was somehow obscure. Like when Vice disintegrated, a few of these post-mortem analyses would say, like, they were so crazy they even had a guy who was reporting on drugs, like as if this was like so unthinkable that there would be somebody who would specialize in reporting on this domain.
Science is the problem.
What an experience.
So they saw that as a factor in the downfall, or they saw that as just a notable point of discussion?
Like a notable point, like this wild media organization even was so crazy that they had somebody who was reporting on drugs.
Yeah, I remember seeing that meme back in the day where someone, it was like a dildo thrown onto a...
Excuse me. Guys, terribly sorry. I am informed that I have to go help my family. So I will go do so. And I will bomb out here, and I might be gone for like an hour, hour and a half, something like that. And I'm sorry I didn't see an interruption coming, but I'm a good man. I try to take care of my family, so gonna go do that. So I love you guys. Thank you so much. And I will be ending this stream here. I'm gonna pause the video here. And okay, hi guys, I'm back. What's up? I had to go take some trash to the dump, and I'm back now to play some video games. And I lost my shadow weather, and I am back just waiting. Gonna get on Mortal and chop some tree. Chop some tree, chop some tree.
2022, more people that died than in the Vietnam War. Like, it's a huge, 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 huge deal. At least Americans that died in the Vietnam War. And yet it remains this kind of like thing that no matter how many people die, no matter how much consequence it has on medicine or scientific research or any number of extremely important areas, people just don't take it seriously, or they have some kind of weird resistance to actually understanding it.
The filtered aqueous calcium ethyl sulfate is treated with an aqueous solution of sodium carbonate, forming sodium ethyl sulfate. The cation exchange is visually monitored by the precipitation of insoluble calcium carbonate, which settles to the bottom of the bucket.
So back in those days, do they still have that big Williamsburg office?
No, smaller when I started. There were like different, it started out as one thing, then it doubled in size, and then I moved to a different location. When I started, it was much smaller.
What was the culture of the company back then?
It's funny because there is an era that never gets talked about with Vice, because you have these like very dazzling figures like Gavin McInnes that everyone likes to talk about because they're controversial and they're involved in all these politically sensitive domains, or Shane Smith because he was a showman. But the main guy during that period was this editor, Jesse Pearson, who doesn't really get talked about that much because he was just a very talented guy who made great stuff, and there's nothing really controversial about him. But he was making Vice into this sort of interesting counterculture literary magazine, and he would have people like William Vollman contributing. There's a lot of really good journalism, publishing fiction, a lot of interesting art stuff. Like during that period, I was doing all kinds of stuff that you wouldn't even typically associate with Vice, like getting an original translation of a Stanislaw Lem science fiction short story that had never been translated to English before, stuff like that. So there was a lot of cool stuff going on that didn't quite fit the stereotypes, so people sort of forgot about most of that type of stuff.
What marked like the distinct end of that era and the beginning of a new one?
It was the pivot to news. It was because Vice was essentially a art and comedy magazine.
Right.
And then they started kind of dipping a toe in the water of like, maybe we can do real news, and we can even rival organizations like the New York Times or CNN. And
excuse me for
communications degree at a small school. Yes. So, to a certain extent.
I've never studied journalism in any way.
Yeah.
My sense of journalistic ethics is entirely self-constructed based on my sense of what is right and wrong. I don't even really know what is, like, I know that I have to tell the truth, but I don't know what is taught to a student. I know that a lot of the people that I see that do have, like, graduate degrees in journalism and things like that tend to be some of the worst journalists that I see. And I actually have a snarky hypothesis for that, which is that one of your primary tasks as a journalist is to assess whether or not you're being scammed by somebody.
Right.
And so if you pay $100,000 or your parents pay $100,000 for you to get a master's degree from Columbia for a journalism degree, you're probably not very perceptive to scams.
I'm at Columbia because it's the best place to learn journalism, period.
If this is like what you're doing to become like a blogger at some...
Definitely.
Yeah.
And also, like, the way things have changed now, I'm sure it was like a bit different 8 and 10 years ago, but you're more likely to have success as a journalist now in the field and just like through developing your own personal following than you are through a newsroom hierarchy.
Yep.
And I of course agree. I think like the entire old way of doing things is kind of broken down and has become...
I can't wait for all the boomer stuff to stop.
Kind of
Their corrupt media, their corrupt politics.
Like you and me. It's not
their war on the poor, their
institutions,
prison industrial complex, their drug war.
Experience brain drain because anybody that has a following of more than a couple thousand people can make more money than they would working at the New York Times with an independent news show of some kind. And then the main advantage of these legacy media institutions is legal protection so that journalists can take risks and they can say things that are dangerous, but the institution is there to protect them with lawyers to allow them to be free to say whatever it is that they want to say. But that is also breaking down, I think.
I think so too. You're talking about like the CBS settlement and the Paramount lawsuit and stuff like that?
I wasn't referring to that specifically, but that would be an example. But more and more, I see fact-checking not as something that is done to establish factuality, but as something that is done to limit legal liability of a media outlet. Like the fact-checker doesn't really care about what is true, they care about what can result in a lawsuit.
So meaning that if somebody has more capital, they're going to be more cautious about criticizing them.
And that's the whole point should be that if you have a big institution, the advantage is the freedom to actually say things and not be afraid of somebody intimidating you with a lawsuit of one kind or another.
And that's why we need court reform.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'm getting legally threatened as well. And I'm planning to ignore it. But even getting to the point of saying, all right, fuck it, I'm going to ignore it, that required lawyers to say, okay, I think you can ignore this.
So the thing that you're getting legally threatened about is what we're going to talk about today.
Yes.
So the audience is going to get an extremely juicy insider look into a thing that could land you in trouble. But if you do, we'll help you.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
What's up, everybody? My name is Andrew Callahan, and you're watching Fivecast, our broadcast podcast type of deal, which is also available.
Wow, he's wearing a Hatchetman shirt.
Spotify, Amazon, and Apple Podcasts. Today, we're sitting down with the illustrious Hamilton Morris, as you guys have seen, and we're going to discuss many complicated and intricate things before ultimately diving into how and why a paid activist group called Symposia, who are funded by an allegedly nefarious pharmaceutical company called USONA, successfully interfered with the FDA's plans to legalize MDMA after a series of highly successful clinical trials in which it was proven that MDMA helped many patients, including U.S. Army veterans, cope and heal from their PTSD, anxiety, and depression.
I feel normal again, if that makes any sense. My world changed. This therapy is...
Ecstasy fixed all these squares.
Let's back up a bit to give you guys a refresher.
I think it could.
Began back in 2018 after the end of the Zandemic and were arranged by a group called MAPS, the Multidisciplinary Association.
Yeah, MAPS is interesting. I love MAPS.
In Denver that we shot some footage at.
Yeah.
For the press pass, fellas. So in these trials, around 80% of participants achieved significant remission, with some no longer even meeting the diagnosis criteria for PTSD after just 2 to 3 supervised MDMA-assisted therapy sessions.
67% of them lost their PTSD diagnosis.
Yet still, as I mentioned, the FDA advisory panel decided to pull the plug last minute as a result of external pressure from Symposia, who ran a multi-year cancel campaign accusing various figures in the MDMA world of abuses of power, sexual misconduct, cultural appropriation, the gentrification of consciousness, and of course, the hyper-capitalization of sacred indigenous medicines. Now, MDMA is back to being a Schedule I narcotic lumped in legally with heroin and punishable by up to 3 years in prison and or a $10,000.
I know, because I've been
We're
there.
back to more people being in jail for drugs and treating mental health disorders by bombing people's brains with Prozac and other mind-numbing SSRIs. But anyways, I think this story is very important because the phrase paid protester often reads like some George Floyd era phony baloney Soros bullshit conspiracy used to delegitimize righteous anger about something. But the suits have truly entered the vampire castle, for real this time, and are using progressive language to destroy progressive causes. And alternative media is complicit. Anyways, like I mentioned, Hamilton's going to cover a lot of ground today. This episode actually took me 2 separate watches to really digest in its totality. So if you want to watch this whole thing on half speed and low pitch, I don't blame you. So what the heck is going on?
With the whole psychedelic world?
No. With the legal threats you're getting.
Oh, with the legal threats I'm getting.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting, these legal threats that I'm getting. So in the psychedelic world, there's been a weird turn that has taken place where there was a period where pretty much all of the reporting that you saw was extremely positive.
We are in the early stages of what future generations may one day describe as a kind of psychedelic renaissance.
I thought it was like vaguely corny, but as far as problems go, it was a very minor one to have. You know, everyone is writing these stories like, gee whiz, magic mushrooms, you thought they were a drug, but they're actually a treatment for depression. And there's actually a study going on at Johns Hopkins University, and they're finding out that these magic mushrooms occasion mystical type experiences.
I disagree.
And so it's like, all right, whatever. We get a bunch of news articles saying that psychedelics aren't bad. This is not really a very exciting revelation to me, but it's a hell of a lot better than stories about how it's good that someone's getting arrested for possessing drugs or something like that, which is kind of the norm. And this was around the time that I left journalism to just do chemistry full time for a couple of years. I was like, this is all on autopilot. Like, people are going to write, the clinical trials will progress. People will write their puff pieces about the pharmaceutical companies and how they're doing something good, which, as far as I'm concerned, they are actually. Like, I think it's a good thing to develop MDMA or psilocybin for treatment of depression. But as soon as I left the public sphere, I just started to notice more and more of these extremely negative articles coming out that seem to nonsensically scaremonger in various ways. There's a term for it that this scholar Oliver Davis gave. He called it the entrepreneurship of psychedelic negativity. And it's like, it almost was like its own microeconomy in this world of people writing these articles about the gentrification of consciousness. Or
Whoa. We gotta back up a bit. What is the gentrification of consciousness? How do you gentrify something that doesn't exist? Well, it does exist, but not in a tangible form.
You'll have to write a think piece about it. I don't know.
No, I mean, what the hell does that mean?
Who the fuck knows what that means?
No, you read the article. What are they saying that means?
That it's bad that psychedelics are being developed as medicines because conceivably somebody might make money off of it.
Oh, like white capitalists?
Yeah.
And okay, so this has to do with Native Americans.
Vaguely.
Because they use psychedelics like peyote for ceremonies. So they're saying that like the suits making things like the sacred medicines of the indigenous peoples available for therapy is gentrifying the medicine.
Basically, yes.
Okay, cool. So I figured it out.
Yeah.
All right, dope. So you're seeing a bunch of negative puff pieces about different kinds of drugs.
Yeah, the psychedelic industrial complex, a lot of this kind of moralistic hand-wringing about patents, weird articles about the ethics of treating PTSD in veterans.
They're sticking up for veterans.
No. Actually, this is like essentially anti-veteran. They're saying essentially they got PTSD by fighting wars for the American war machine, therefore they deserve to suffer. This is the basic idea.
Even for Vietnam vets, they feel this way. 17-year-old kids who got drafted. All vets. If you're drafted and you have PTSD, you're not a part of the American war machine. You have no choice.
Right, and it's almost entirely impoverished people who are doing it because it afforded some opportunities in education or healthcare, and because they're being pummeled with different types of propaganda, and it's not a very compassionate way of thinking about people's motivations for being involved in the military, even if you're anti-American war and anti-military, which I generally speaking am, but I wouldn't go so far as to say that I think that veterans shouldn't receive effective treatment for PTSD because it promotes the American imperialist war machine.
It's asinine.
Yeah. But you saw more and more and more of this stuff, and I'm looking at it and I'm just thinking, oh God, everyone has to write with this tone. It has to always be another one of these articles making psychedelics look bad for something seemingly innocuous or not even bad at all. And so I started wondering more and more about how things were getting this bad, how it had gotten to the point that more and more of the reporting was just this sort of nonsense. And I started talking to people about it. One of the things that had become very prominent was this patent scaremongering. This was like immensely prevalent. And at the beginning, there was this patent attorney named Graham Pechenik. And he told me the story himself, actually, where he'd gone to a MAPS conference and he felt bad that no one was really interested in his work as a patent attorney. And then he kind of started strategically scaring people about patents, and suddenly everyone was interested in what he had to say. So this started out with frightening people about I can't even remember who, someone patented DMT vapes. And so he's tweeting about this like, oh my God, DMT vapes are being patented. We've got to end this DMT vape patent. But this is just such an irrelevant distraction because DMT is a Schedule I controlled substance federally. So the idea of patent police being what we have to, there's no such thing as patent police either, by the way. But the idea of like some imaginary patent enforcement force that is going to come and arrest people for possessing patent-protected DMT vapes is just ridiculous. It's a non-existent problem. It has never occurred.
Like the drug war.
He was battling was terrible and unenforceable. The whole thing was just ridiculous.
Only suffering is real.
Lots of ridiculous stuff. But what worries me is you can frighten people about irrelevant issues. So then you have people worried about DMT patents instead of drug policy reform, instead of actually recognizing the real issue, which is federal prohibition of DMT, and trying to change the laws so that we could even live in a world where this ridiculous concern of patent infringement on your DMT vape would be a reality. Like that's like, we should be so lucky as to live in a world where that is a legitimate concern, but it's very much not the case. And then maybe one more just brief example of like how bad this got, because I think people listening to this, they don't even know. Like I'm friends with this guy named Timothy Tyler, and he's like one of these 3-strike law ultimate horror stories where I think he like sold weed or something when he was like 18, and then maybe when he was 19 he got caught selling LSD and was sentenced to life in prison, and he was in prison for like 25 years and only got out of prison because Obama directly pardoned him. So this is like drug war worst case scenario. Like you would have died in a cage for selling a relatively small amount of LSD. Not that any amount justifies being locked in a cage for the rest of your life.
No.
And just by direct intervention of the president of the United States were you able to be set free.
But that's the drug war. That's the prison industrial complex.
Work at a university that was being funded by one of these pharmaceuticals.
That's how they treated us for meth. I caught my first drug charge when I was 17. Like that guy.
I don't know, man. Like, aren't you worried about that company? And I was like, no, not really.
Had so many drug charges, probably 20.
Like, well, I heard that they patented psilocybin. And I was like, yeah, they patented like one form of it for treatment of like one type of depression. And he's like, but that's not good. Like, what are my friends gonna do who sell mushrooms? And I was like, oh, your friends can't sell mushrooms right now. It's like federally illegal. Like, but this was like, and the point here is not to say that this guy, like, this shit is very confusing for people. And so when you add all this, like, journalists fanning the flames of fear with irrelevant issues, people don't identify what the actual problem is. Like, you have people that were concerned that patent infringement was the issue with selling psychedelics, as opposed to federal prohibition of every commonly used psychedelic, which are all placed in Schedule I, which is the most restrictive.
Which is what I've been used to all of my life.
Legal category.
All of them. Illegal, 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 illegal. I've done all of these. I've done all of them. Yep. Oh, a lot of all of them. Yep.
Approaching.
Zolpidem. I used to mess with that quite a lot. Zolpidem is Soma. Jesus Christ. Anyways, yeah. Ketamine, yep, codeine mixtures and stuff, yep. The only way I've ever done codeine is pills. I've never done codeine as a syrup.
Drugs that not only have the highest abuse potential as conceptualized by the government, but no recognized medical use. So yeah, so this keeps going, and I don't know if I should just go right into this kind of
homie.
So
fucking homie.
There was like one group that was particularly active in anti-psychedelic reporting. They had become, and I think like every
there's
community
always
has some version of this group.
Yeah.
Like comedy had that guy Seth Simons, you know what I'm talking about? He was like the person who got
or the people that disprove. I'm gonna say it before he does. They're the hecklers and the people that disprove magicians and stuff like this. They're like, nah, you're bullshit. You're making a lot of money, but you shouldn't be.
Shane Gillis canceled.
So he's the one who went and found that Asian quote from back in the day, made it a whole thing, destroyed the guy's career for a couple of years.
Yeah. So, and that was his specialty. It was like, let me dig up something that proves that somebody is a fascist or a racist, or let me find a joke that I can take out of context to prove that someone is wicked in some way.
Fuck that guy.
Yeah, fuck that guy. Yes. Yeah.
I don't know. I think it's
weird
actually
hustle that I think
interesting.
Every community, like I guarantee there's like someone listening to this in the like fly fishing community or something. And he's like, and there's like a dude like that who's like trying to prove that fly fishing is racist or something. Or like, just like there became a type of person that became obsessed with proving the wickedness of their adversaries within whatever niche community they were a part of. And so this group were terrorizing everyone in the psychedelic world. They were called symposia. They've actually just totally self-destructed at this point because they all started accusing each other of impropriety, and by the end of it, every single one of them had their own allegations.
I want to say that I resigned from Symposia at the end of last year because
You seem crazy.
Concerned about a former
I don't like your shirt.
colleague's conduct.
I don't like your hair. I don't like your fucking glasses. You're just a white dude, but you seem like you're stealing some kind of black culture mixed with Bob Ross, and it just seems goddamn dumb, and I don't like you.
And the trajectory of the institution as a whole.
I don't like the way you talk.
A major factor
I don't like the way you look.
was that Symposia.
These guys seem fine to me. There's Suit Dummy and this guy. You seem really weird.
Failed to investigate a formal complaint of unethical behavior filed against one of the members of the organization, and then subsequently failed to address a multitude of additional issues that were presented to the team.
Which is, of course, a typical and classic parable of the left.
Of like Symposium.
Which is sad, because I'm not just suggesting that there weren't actual problems in itself, which is, of course, a typical and classic parable of the left eating itself, which is sad, because I'm not just suggesting that there weren't actual problems and don't continue to be actual problems related to psychedelic research and the medicalization.
You could absolutely have like an overdose of acid like Andrew did.
And therapeutic implementation of psychedelics are real problems. We can talk about them for the next 10 hours, but the issue is that the sorts of people that tend to appoint themselves as police officers to protect a space are often the least ethical, craziest people in a given group. It's like the sorts of people that want to be cops are usually the last people that you want to be a cop. And so this group started out very vocally pledging their absolute support for a pharmaceutical company called Usona. The at one time leader of the group, who went by the pseudonym David Nichols, which was oddly stolen from a prominent psychedelic chemist, which makes it confusing to talk about. And so he had announced his absolute support for the pharmaceutical company Usona, but in the same announcement, advised people to start terrorizing and engaging in terrorist tactics against any individuals involved with Usona's competitor Compass. And this became kind of the de facto stance of all reporting, creating this highly simplistic moral binary where USONA were the good guys and their business competitor Compass were the bad guys.
I think we also need to ask who are the gatekeepers in such a model. And as some of these places talk about mainstreaming psychedelics, we have to ask, what is the mainstream? What are the effects of mainstreaming psychedelics? And are the benefits, supposed benefits, what they're claiming?
And so I'm like watching all this stuff unfold, working in a lab that's receiving money from Compass, thinking, geez, this sure seems really unfair, but damn, if I'm the last person that should be talking about this, I have a legitimate conflict of interest. So I'm thinking, oh, well, maybe another journalist is going to come along and talk about this or something, so I don't have to be the one, because this is fucking weird. And I just started watching more and more weird stuff. It just kept getting worse and worse and worse, where USONA was, instead of like issuing press releases, they would just seemingly issue all of their stories through this one Vice blogger named Shayla Love.
Vice is involved.
Yeah, Vice is involved, actually. Vice was the primary instrument of this because Vice doesn't even have any kind of fact-checking whatsoever. Maybe for a very brief period at the magazine they had fact-checking, but Vice was a perfect tool for this particular thing. Like any person I've ever talked to advice about this, no one has been surprised at all that this happened. So they would say things, representatives or funders of USONA would leak these stories to this Vice blogger, Shayla Love, saying these things like, oh, Compass is interfering with legalization efforts in Oregon. And we got to sound the alarm on this.
So they were making it seem like Compass was actually gatekeeping and blocking the legalization of psychedelics.
Which is a very powerful idea, because that's kind of what you would expect would happen, right? You have a bunch of ultra-rich people getting involved in funding multi-million-dollar clinical trials on psychedelics. It's costing a huge amount of money. Wouldn't non-medical use of psychedelics represent a threat to their business? So it makes intuitive sense when you think about it that a pharmaceutical company would do that. The issue was that it just wasn't true. And if you read the article, it's very bizarre. It's like the evidence that they have for this interference didn't come from any of the people that were part of this initiative, Measure 109 in Oregon, to legalize psilocybin. In fact, they explicitly said that there had been no interference. It came from a random-ass psychiatrist named George Keepers, who had received a friendly email from someone involved with one of these pharmaceutical companies, and that was it. So there's actually no evidence for it whatsoever. Again, this is almost hard to talk about. Like, as I'm telling you, I'm like, damn, this is a complicated story, and it involves all these names. But the real takeaway is that there was an enormous amount of extremely bad reporting that was coming out that was distorting the way people thought about these things. It's an ironic twist that this false information about Compass interfering with legalization efforts in Oregon came from a funder of USONA, a company that was providing direct financial incentives to MAPS, saying they would give them money if they halted all drug policy reform. So the company that was actually interfering with drug policy reform was then planting an idea that their competitor was doing exactly what they were truly doing.
So double gaslighting.
Yeah, double gaslighting. Again, complicated shit.
Info wars.
So who does fund you guys? Where do you guys get funding from?
So we are not currently discussing our funders.
Info wars. And I mean, this is like one of the weird things about journalism and storytelling is when a story gets complicated enough, it just starts to sound like the gibberish of a conspiracy theorist.
No, I'm following you.
Okay. It's like, when you talk to someone, they're like, oh, Alan Dulles and Sidney Gottlieb, they were working with Operation Paperclip. And you just...
We're going to have visual aid for this.
Okay. All right. Okay, so I'll go into it.
So the juncture we're at right now is that you have this pharmaceutical company making it seem like...
USONA is such a weird word.
Trying to block the legalization of psychedelics, but it's actually them that are trying to block legalization of psychedelics. They're using Vice to disseminate negative press about this company while simultaneously encouraging terroristic action. When you said terroristic, do you mean like car bombs and stuff?
I can read you exactly what they wrote, actually.
They call for violent action against a rival pharmaceutical company?
Yeah.
I definitely want to see it.
Yeah. I can pull it up right now.
Yeah, for sure.
This is the screen grab. Support USONA. Absolutely! Exclamation point. This is the first line. But no, I mean shutting down Compass independently. fucking with their business operations in ways designed to raise the cost of operating. Hey, they want to exist according to the logic of capitalism. Let's leverage that logic to make it too expensive to operate. Here's a post I made over on Kat's earlier Compass post, Kat being another person who is paid by the CEO of USONA, reportedly, although I have not been able to, I've heard that from 2 people, but haven't been able to verify it, but I suspect that it's the case. What do? Shut it down. There are plenty of strategies that could be developed to make that happen, ranging from milquetoast to militant. Facebook isn't really the best place to discuss some of those tactics. There's a Facebook post public. But some spur of the moment ideas I could imagine right now might be organizing call-ins to Compass and or associated research institutions such as MAPS to express disgust and result in tying up the lines, thereby making some aspects of general operations untenable, or at least frustrating. The same could be applied to the individuals involved. 2, continued writing/coverage of how the for-profit commodified approach puts us all in jeopardy and threatens more open access models of medical treatment. 3, check out the strategies some folks use to oppose Huntington life science. This is like threatening people with weapons. I'm not necessarily advocating any of those strategies, but there's a good precedent for relatively small groups of people tanking major corporations through utilization of militant tactics. And it just goes on, it's multiple paragraphs.
Interesting. So this is all like pretty fascinating because this idea of like paid protest and controlled opposition oftentimes gets like thrown around, especially in the conservative media sphere, to like delegitimize anger and outrage when it comes to things that are happening.
The Tesla rally. Some of these guys are paid agitators and paid protesters.
It's typically not true. But I find it really interesting here that the company USONA is using this sort of like anti-capitalist, anti-fascist language to do their bidding and kind of mobilize like gullible people against the people that are actually doing the good thing.
Oh yeah. This is, as far as I know, this is the only example of this that I knew about. And I always had this weird thing where I was like, why is this anti-capitalist dude saying support a company that's run by like a former Exxon and Shell oil futures trader and a billionaire bioscience dude? Like, it just didn't make sense. Obviously, people are routinely hypocrites, so it's not that crazy. But there was something where I was like, I fucking strongly suspect that this dude is getting paid by USONA. And I started seeing this more and more with USONA employees harassing me at talks that I gave. It's like a couple stories, but just weird stuff. There's one where a USONA employee who never identified herself as such was like, I want you to explain what you're giving back to the indigenous people of the world, or something like that. Right, and the audience erupts into applause.
Yeah, thank you. I have a 2-part question about the psilocybin polymorph A compound that Compass has recently patented. And so from your perspective as an obviously very accomplished chemist, Hamilton, who is
look at the needle this lady has to thread before she can make her verbal attack.
What your thoughts on the legitimacy of that patent as a new innovation, first, and if you're able to speak to that, and 2, how you think that patent impacts the supply chain, and particularly in the context of the issues of indigenous reciprocity that we've been talking about this afternoon.
Indigenous reciprocity? What does indigenous reciprocity mean? I don't even really know what that means. Okay. I guess.
It was nonsense. Like, arguably, everyone who lives in the United States does. I'm not like saying that there isn't. I'm not saying that it's like not something worth discussing. Yeah. But there was nothing that I was doing that was based on indigenous knowledge. I was synthesizing completely novel tryptamines that contain atoms that are never found in tryptamines in nature, like fluorine. Like, this is just like totally synthetic stuff that is not derived from indigenous knowledge in any way. It actually, if anything, was derived from like a steampunk cannabinoid baron from New Zealand. That dude, if someone deserved reciprocity, it would be the...
I wish someone that would describe me that way. So someone's tripping on you at a conference about not giving back to indigenous people. They're a paid plant from a pharmaceutical corporation.
Yes.
How does that make you feel?
It makes me feel sad. It makes me feel hurt. It makes me feel vaguely disgusted by all of this. And it was not even just this one. There was another USONA employee who hit me with one of my least favorite. Actually, it's like this is like my true Achilles heel. I made multiple pieces about psychedelic toad venom, but like one of the most pedantic, irritating criticisms is people will say, "Oh, it's not really a venom. Technically, it's a poison."
Like many amphibians, Bufo alvarius possesses a powerful defense against predators. When bitten, the toad secretes a milky white fluid from its parotid glands that can poison its attacker, making them extremely ill and sometimes causing cardiac arrest.
That makes your blood boil?
Yeah, it makes my blood boil.
Do you start yelling? I can't
Yeah.
picture you yelling.
No.
I'm sure you've done it before.
There's a video recording of this. I actually was able to contain my volcanic rage.
My volcanic rage.
So,
despite all my rage, I am still just a rat in a cage.
Teleological distinction. And it's really not a recognized one by anyone in the toxicology community. Like, there's a hyper-restrictive definition of the word venom that it has to be injected by a fang. It's not the dictionary definition of venom. I think a better one is to think about venoms as something that are actively delivered defensively as opposed to like a passive substance, which would be a poison. Anyway, it is a venom. All scholars who have ever studied this have called it a venom. Anyway, so the USONA employee, after I gave a talk about this, corrected me, saying that it's not a venom.
And they're coming and tripping, they're being rude to you and interrupting your talks because of your association with Compass, or just because they feel like you're a leading figure in the pro-psychedelic legalization movement?
Because of the Compass stuff.
Okay, specifically because of your chemistry work with Compass.
Yeah, that was the reason, yeah. And because I was considered, I think they had pretty much totally monopolized any media coverage. Everything was pro-USONA. The New York Times wrote an article with a kind of glowing profile of the work that was done by USONA, profiling this guy, Bob Jesse, and never even mentioning that he was employed by the pharmaceutical company. Very weird stuff. And USONA did something very complicated where they divided themselves into all of these different companies. So USONA is a nonprofit. They receive their money from a for-profit, massive biotech company called Promega. So the profits from Promega are swept into USONA. There's a lawsuit from the shareholders of Promega suing the owner of USONA for funneling profit into, because they have a huge amount of money. I think they have, I looked on GuideStar, and just the property that USONA owns alone is like 80 million in Wisconsin. But then USONA has additional companies connected to it that are the same company, the same tax ID number.
I think this guy is a loser, and I think Andrew got suckered in.
They don't represent themselves as being connected. So there's freedom to operate, which is their patent liberation.
And it took me a long time to say anything, because I was like, I'll reserve my judgment until I'm further into this or whatever. Here I am, and I think this man is a charlatan, and I'm sorry. Not because he isn't saying things that are correct, because everything he said is correct, but the way that he couches it, the way that he steers it is sus.
Company where they target anybody that
I don't know why the way that he couches it and the way that he sources it is sus, but often you see him blanking the screen on quotes and stuff like that
are competing with USONA and try to destroy them. Then there's Porta Sophia, which is a psychedelic prior art database where they index literature.
I think I met these people actually once, and it's kind of insane, but I believe that I met kind of a weird sort of, I would say, hippie mafia type organization once. And they were running like a shop up there in Westminster. And the only way I met them is I was like a taxi driver and I drove them home. But like, they were telling me that like nitrous is this huge, huge business, where like balloons are sold every day to crazy addicts who are frying their brains on nitrous and shit like this. And the government doesn't really want them doing this, but the addicts don't care. So there's never any outcry or complaints or anything like this, because it's not like how they're like, oh, he overdosed on this thing. Like they're like, and I drove this guy home from the hippie shop. And he was so deep into it, it was insane. He was kind of insane. He sold nitrous in his shop, And then he was connected to my acid fucking cocaine dealer guy who was like a hippie that I met in the back of a fucking, or while I drove him home from a, like I met a bunch of weird people in the Denver scene that, like, all of them believed that there was a future in psychedelics. All of them did. I could tell all of them did. Like, even the guy that was selling nitrous was like, I have a really important future, kind of. You could tell that he made more money than me.
That could be used to interfere.
Selling nitrous is fucking cheap.
With competitors' patents, but notably do not list prior art for the patents held by the owners of Usona.
I met a lot of really weird, crazy, wicked men who sell things that a lot of crazy, fucking weird, wicked people like. And I'm not really too down with it, but my whole thing is like, those people, they can't be told what to do though, because all they're doing is chemistry.
So this is really like it's almost, we can talk about this forever.
And so, like, he might say the same thing as sacred. What they're really doing is chemistry. And like, understand, like, I live a chemical lifestyle pretty much. Like, my main chemical, I would say, is caffeine. But I mean, beyond caffeine, there would be like marijuana, caffeine, marijuana mainly. And if I can keep it that simple and I do the most extreme versions of caffeine and marijuana, I'm not ever harassed by these crazies who want to make $1 off of fucking nitrous or something.
I'm annoyed that I have to be the one to say this stuff because it's so fucking obvious, right?
Yeah,
it's
it is
so
obvious. It is obvious.
These like billionaires do not have people's best interest in mind.
No.
And that they create these like pledges to know they're not making money off of psychedelics pledge and frame themselves as doing all this advocacy work when the reality is they are incentivizing MAPS, ceasing drug policy reform work, paying activists to terrorize their competitors, creating a fraudulent prior art database that doesn't index any of the work that would interfere with their own patents, and asking for donations from the public as if what they're doing serves the Commonwealth in some way, when
No,
it's
it
just about
doesn't.
their own
No,
shitty business.
they're just their own shitty, like, fucking crazy business that they want to make the problem of everybody else.
And what's the
And we see
connection?
this a lot in the drug business.
Between them,
Like, my favorite version of it is Trailer Park Boys made this hilarious joke in like season 12, or I think it's actually season 8, something like that. And they go out there to the train convention, and then they do some business with Sebastian from fucking I forget the band that he's from. But and then they're like, they say this hilarious line. They're like, we're past the point in our lives where our wives dictate what happens to our drug deals.
Symposia, is that jumping too far ahead?
No, it's not jumping too far ahead. So Symposia had a lot of people that were involved. It was kind of like the gutter that collected the dregs of the psychedelic world. And most of the people were nutcases. Occasionally, there would be someone who's actually...
Yeah, all of those people look like nutcases. They look like all of my friends. Oftentimes... I've got to be really honest with you guys, and it's fucking crazy, but I've had a friend who shot his father and then himself a second later. I've had a friend who shot up HIV and AIDS right in front of me as somebody warned her what was in the shot. I've had crazy psychological episodes from my husband's, from one of my best friend's wives and stuff. Or not husbands, just crazy. Like, one of my best friends was a husband to a wife, and he was like cheating on her, and a bunch of bad stuff happened because of that. It's just weird. It's like when I look at the faces of these people, I see somebody who's desperate.
Occasionally, there would be someone who's actually, as I said previously, there are legitimate criticisms of the psychedelic scape. So like sometimes someone would come along and they would be legitimately anti-capitalist and they'd say, oh, look at this group, the critical psychedelic studies, they're shining light on the problems with sexual abuse or whatever. And there was this
like
guy
my friend D
in Tram's Kitchen,
yeah,
who had written some anti-psychedelic articles that were like, why the state shouldn't fund ibogaine research because...
Right, but I want ibogaine research.
shouldn't fund ibogaine research because I can't remember what his reason was. I disagreed with it. And so I'd always been suspicious of this guy because he wrote for Symposia and because he wrote anti-drug articles that struck me as anti-drug. He's subsequently written some articles that I really like. So he had written to me before, and I hadn't responded to him because I was suspicious, and then said, we really need to talk. And at this point, I already knew that Symposia had been receiving money from the Sarlo family, which is another thing. But the USONA connection was the one that I had heard indirectly from an enormous number of people. And he said, you're not going to believe this, but these people, they're not legitimate. They're actually receiving money to behave this way. And I was like, yeah, I fucking know. Everyone knows. No journalists are writing about it, but everyone knows. And he's like, oh, and, they're receiving money from Bob Jesse from USONA. I started telling people about this, and Bob Jesse admits to secretly providing money to David Nichols at the time that he announced his absolute support for USONA and began to advocate terrorist action against individuals involved with Compass. We then confronted him at the MAPS conference, and he admitted to doing this. Can I ask you a quick question?
You may. Hi.
Hey, I don't know if we've met. Maybe we met a long time ago.
I think we might have been on stage once a long time ago, but didn't actually say hi.
Yeah.
How's your reputation precede you? Good to see you.
So, I feel like this is sort of an aggressive question. I feel bad asking, but a couple of ex-Symposia members have contacted me, and they told me that you had been providing them with money and intel in what they felt was a effort to destroy Compass.
No. Let's see.
Yeah.
Not directly my money, but I'm responsible for having sent to Symposia before things really blew up and got nasty. 2 separate donations, small amounts of money, and not for the purpose of getting them to do anything.
So why do you think they said that? Yeah, and why were you giving them money?
Oh, because for a little while they were saying things no one else would say. The same reason you would give Lucid News money.
And then, because I know that you were involved with the Sarlo Family Foundation, and they've, paid an enormous amount of money to Niche and to Symposia to run this campaign against MAPS, $185,000
Oh, I
reported.
didn't know that, but that was long after I left that foundation.
Yeah.
Long after.
And they're suing me now, or attempting to.
Why?
Because I said that they had done this.
Well, suing you for something like defamation or national damage?
Defamation.
Well, guess what? My understanding, not a lawyer, is that truth is an absolute defense against defamation.
He then came up to me and said that we couldn't use the audio because audio is sacred. Then he said that he'd talk to me about it off the record. I mean, at this point, I don't even really care. It's just, but the question is, why would somebody do something like this? And I think they thought they could control this extremist group of nutcases and give them a little money, give them a little intel, and sick them on Compass because it had worked so well with other people. Like this Vice blogger, Shayla Love, was totally obedient to the interests of USONA. Anything they told her, she would uncritically repeat. So you should be able to do the same thing with everyone. It had worked very well for them in the past. And the problem was that these people were uncontrollable. They were seriously insane.
With wizardry and everything like that, yeah, it kind of is. That's what patents are. They're like magic spells, essentially. And
what?
The introduction of his book lays that out. I pasted a thing
Tracing
here
it back
that
to
was really-
alchemy, like literally.
Yeah, he traces it back to alchemy.
Actually.
It's amazing.
Dangerously insane. This is why funding terrorist organizations to do your bidding is usually a bad idea historically.
Yeah, every time we do it, it always backfires.
It hasn't ended well.
Yeah.
It's just, you'd think we'd learned that lesson. It hasn't ended well.
So a lot of this is coming into the fold right now, specifically because of the bad news that was, I think, received this year, if not last year, about MDMA.
A few hours ago, the FDA rejected MDMA therapy as a treatment for PTSD.
Yeah. For those who don't know about any of that, can you kind of give them a brief overview of what happened with the MDMA stuff?
Oh man, yeah, I can try, but it's a complicated story. But MDMA is this drug that people had been investigating therapeutically for decades. It was made illegal in 1986. The DEA's own administrative law judge had actually recommended against its placement in Schedule 1. He had felt that the case made for its therapeutic use didn't warrant its placement in Schedule 1. He thought people should be able to pursue it medically, but the DEA ignored their own judge's ruling and placed it in Schedule 1. So this guy, Rick Doblin, was totally radicalized by this. He actually was selling MDMA at the time to fund the legal defense to prevent the prohibition of MDMA, which is pretty badass.
He said, I want to be a psychedelic psychotherapist. And we just laughed. Here we are, 41, 42 years later, where he has just stayed on that path.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, he's a really cool guy.
You know, we had a guy in Seattle named Phoenix Jones. He was a superhero.
Yeah.
Who would like go out with a gold cape.
I've heard of
kind
him.
Like bust up drug dealers and drug operations.
My name is Phoenix Jones, and I'm the leader of the Seattle superhero movement.
He got caught with a giant underground MDMA lab and distribution center where he would sell all the MDMA still dressed as Phoenix Jones, which I thought was dope, but it kind of ruined his reputation as a superhero.
So Rick Doblin went on this quest to reverse the prohibition.
Oh, I don't remember the Phoenix Jones story. I've heard of this. I remember hearing about Phoenix Jones, but I had no idea what it actually was. Oh my God. Oh my God, it's Atrocity God.
Across the world, hundreds of individuals are patrolling the streets of their hometowns, seeking out injustices where they might be of service. Some are looking for crime to document, report, or in rare cases, intervene. Others are simply hoping to inspire their community with small acts of heroism, such as handing out food to the hungry or giving a car ride to a would-be drunk driver. As homage to their comic book inspirations, they adopt colorful costumes and pseudonyms, like Redbud Woman and the Crimson Canuck. Each has a different MO. Polar Man travels the streets of Canada, shoveling snow from driveways. The DC Guardian patrols the United States Capitol, handing out copies of the Constitution. Most consider their efforts a type of inspirational cosplay, with a bit of live-action roleplay included for theatrical effect. But of those who have truly modeled themselves after their fictional counterparts, who devote their lives to martial arts training, push their bodies to peak fitness, confront criminals who react violently toward them, and operate alongside a police force who are continuously looking for reasons to get them off the street, there may only be one.
Furthermore, whenever you inject yourself into an issue, there's always the problem that could get worse, and that is people can misconstrue intentions, it can escalate the situation.
Armed with a $10,000 bulletproof suit, a stun baton, 2 million Scoville pepper spray, and a GoPro, Phoenix Jones is perhaps the closest thing to a comic book hero we've ever seen. And during his decade of activity, his fans have watched him transform from hero to anti-hero and finally, to what he'd fought so long to protect Seattle against.
I guess it's true, what they say. You live long enough as the hero, and see yourself become the villain. Very bad, I guess.
This is the rise and fall of Phoenix Jones.
Atrocity Guide's really good.
His full title is Phoenix Jones, Guardian of Seattle, and his story begins in late 2010 when local news began reporting on a mysterious figure who, nearly every night, disappeared into the hidden room of a comic book shop and emerged in a black and gold costume. In the beginning, the learning curve for what he hoped to accomplish proved steep. Patrolling areas rich with nightlife, Jones would occasionally encounter little more than an obnoxious bar patron who needed calming down. Finding crime was nearly as difficult as fighting it. It was pretty embarrassing, Jones told a reporter of Seattle Met, speaking of his early patrols. I walked around downtown and didn't see any crime. But in January of 2011, Jones began to cut his teeth on the extreme brand of heroics that he would ultimately become known for.
One local man came within seconds of having his car broken into, perhaps stolen, until a superhero came to his rescue.
And you just start sticking it down
inside between the window here and the rubber strip.
Dan was calling 911, but help flew in before he finished dialing.
From the right, this guy comes dashing in, just wearing this skin-tight rubber black and golden suit and starts chasing him away.
The attention Jones got from a single incident solidified his niche in crime fighting. In order to separate himself from the growing community of other real-life superheroes, Jones believed he would have to put himself in the precarious situations that others wouldn't dream of. As he continued, Jones began breaking up street fights, attempting to intimidate drug dealers, and in doing so, incurred many injuries.
But a man held him at gunpoint Saturday night while another kicked him and broke his nose. It's under my eye over here on this. I can see your eye, it's all swollen.
But the injuries didn't deter him. He appeared to romanticize the bellicose portrayals of comic book heroes, and he was on his way to becoming one, despite the attempts of Seattle police to dissuade him.
And now police say enough is enough. Someone's gonna end up dead.
Don't insert yourself into those situations. If you see something, call 911.
The bad people are just gonna be bad.
Not the only ones to disapprove. Jones was largely condemned by other costume heroes who considered him delusional and worried his efforts would be harmful to their overall reputation. For the first time, we have someone who agrees with our overall purpose but doesn't agree with our methods, Portland, Oregon-based hero Night Owl told the Wall Street Journal.
It's not putting on a super suit and finding bad guys to fight. Real life isn't that way. Real crime fighting doesn't work that way. If you act that way, you're probably going to make things worse.
Jones was certainly an outlier in the real-life superhero community, a community which can be traced back to the 1970s with a charismatic Californian known as Captain Sticky.
Captain Sticky.
Retiring in his 20s after inventing corrugated fiberglass, Richard Pesto
Corrugated
devoted
fiberglass.
his life to becoming America's first Cape Crusader. Like many after him, Captain Sticky's approach was non-violent. His costume and outrageous persona served as bait for the media, who gave him the platform he needed to speak out against injustices, such as the poor conditions of elderly homes or greedy auto mechanics upcharging their less knowledgeable customers. Of the modern era, many cite Master Legend of Florida as one of the first to seek out crime and physically intervene.
Get a taste of that next time you want to hurt a little kid.
Patrolling Winter Park just outside of Orlando, Master Legend comes
Winter
equipped with his
Park.
Master Blaster, a homemade cannon that fires plastic Easter eggs filled with cayenne pepper and rock salt. While Master Legend and Captain Sticky were novelties at their time of arrival, in recent decades an influx of individuals following in their footsteps began to permeate the streets of metropolitan cities. Mr. Full Moon of Tokyo, Japan, the Black Rat of Sydney, Australia. The more news outlets reported on these individuals, the more they seemed to crop up.
Calls himself the Shadow Hair.
Names like Asylum, Fool King, and Professor Midnight.
Although
Professor
often accused
Midnight.
of being naive, many of these heroes understand the scope of what they can realistically accomplish inside the law. While ideologies vary within these individuals and organizations, common mantras include staying safe, remaining on the good side of law enforcement, and making a difference where one can. But not only did Phoenix Jones stand in stark contrast with his community, he seemed to look down on them. "I don't call them real-life superheroes," he told writer John Ronson, who interviewed Jones in an emergency room as he was being treated for a stab wound. "I call them real-life sandwich handlers." But this separation from the community didn't seem to hinder Phoenix. On the contrary, by mid-2011, Phoenix was well on his way to becoming the world's most famous real-life superhero. During his patrols, Jones would be approached for pictures, autographs, even requests for video shoutouts.
This is Phoenix Jones. If you're not listening to Face Rock, you're foolish right now. Seriously.
And it wasn't long before Phoenix managed to inspire a small coalition of like-minded individuals who costumed themselves to join him on patrol. El Caballero, whose appearance seemed to pay tribute to luchadors, became one of Jones's closest allies.
And you're not a wimp if you call 911.
Purple Rain,
No.
whose focus was domestic assault awareness and prevention, served as strategist and monitored a police radio in order to direct the group to where they might be needed.
So I went to the City of Seattle's website where the police file all their reports, so I look and see what kinds of crimes are happening, if the police respond, and I just factor in all this different data. And I say, you know what, this is where we need to be. And that's how we find crime.
Phoenix had very specific attributes he wanted in his fellow
Smart.
superheroes. They needed to know how to fight. Military and martial arts background was a strict prerequisite, and the recruits stayed sharp with regular training.
Average police response time in Seattle is 5 minutes. We're gonna try to basically hold
4.
off the attacker. Me, Evo being the superhero, we're gonna try to keep it going for about 5 minutes is the goal.
By late 2011, the group had accumulated around 10 members. With names like Buster Doe, Midnight Jack, and Red Dragon, they were a diverse cast of characters. But unified under the leadership of Phoenix Jones, they became the Rain City superhero movement.
Rain City?
Pitch Black's gonna go undercover and attempt to make a drug buy. I don't usually look like this. And once he sees the drugs or the thing, we're gonna come in and bust him. Here's what's going on. We got cameras all over, and we saw what was going on. And we came in here because we saw what's going on. We're not putting up with it anymore. We're tired of it, man. People keep selling drugs in the city, polluting the block, and we're just not putting up with it. It's kind of funny, but I'm dead serious.
Phoenix's approach remained polarizing, as he...
No, you're just hassling drug dealers, you know what I'm saying? All they're doing is selling the fucking substance to the people that need it or they'll die.
Invited camera crews to follow him on patrol. Some sense Jones cared more about his own celebrity than improving his community.
I'm sure he did.
Have you really made the best uses of media attention to further the causes you claim to serve? Fellow Seattle-based hero Ravenblade asked in an open letter to Jones. Have you really acted like a hero? The criticism was largely engulfed by outspoken supporters who considered Phoenix Jones the first legitimate real-life superhero, a distinction from the costume street performers many had come to associate with the movement. They continued, allegedly chasing down a suspect in a stabbing, even stopping a bus from being hijacked. Phoenix and Purple Rain were married, and the two of them together serving as the dual public face of the group seemed to be good PR. Interviewers and media outlets were divided, some wishing to scold the heroes.
It's about Nightwing and Batgirl, isn't it? I mean, that's what it is. It's more about that than anything else, is it not?
Some choosing instead to highlight their accomplishments.
Tell us what happened the night Phoenix saved your life.
A man was getting violent with security at a nightclub. He proceeded to get violent with me and my group of friends. Phoenix ran in and pepper sprayed the guy and defused the entire situation.
How did you hear about it?
The group was earning a bit of respect, and with Seattle having a crime rate 126% above the national average, receiving an F rank on areavibes.com, the Rain City superhero movement had their work cut out for them. But the interventionist approach the heroes employed often skirted the lines of legality.
Put your hands. Stay right here. Stay down.
The process of a citizen's arrest, which the heroes regularly performed, is a complicated and unpredictable one, as it's often easy to mistake the context of a given situation. Jeremy McHenry of MPS Security Services had this to say of the concept of a citizen's arrest. You're going to be sued if you mess up. You can be arrested for making a false arrest. Many understood that Jones's reckless approach would sooner or later catch up with him. So it was no surprise that in late 2011, the inevitable...
He got a lawsuit.
A so-called superhero in Seattle is under arrest.
Phoenix and fellow hero Ghost were out on patrol when they witnessed a crowd of people congregating beneath a viaduct. From the distance up the street where the heroes stood, it looked like a street fight. Phoenix ran in, shouting to the group to break it up, instructing Ghost to dial 911 as was their protocol. But rather than thanking Phoenix for his assistance, the group turned on him. Phoenix, unable to verbally control the situation, employed the use of his pepper spray. The police arrived soon after, their patience with Jones already spent, and took statements from both parties. According to Jones, what he thought he was running into was an assault. But according to a police report, the group was, quote, dancing and frolicking around with each other when a masked man came running and shouting toward them, coating the area in pepper spray. The last paragraph of the police report notes that this was the second complaint of the night regarding Jones, who had pepper sprayed a group of nightclub patrons some hours earlier. Although Jones was gone by the time the officer arrived at the scene, he described the distinct
You're getting too
scent of
drunk
pepper
now. You're
spray
getting too
lingering
drunk
in the air.
now.
The Seattle Police Department decided to make an example out of Phoenix, and he was arrested for assault.
Oh, assault. That's not good. I've caught 3 of those, and I walked away from all 3 because I've never harmed a living thing.
After sitting in a jail
And those
cell
liars can
overnight,
suck a
Jones
dick.
made his $3,800 bail and emerged to a team of reporters waiting outside the courthouse. Phoenix welcomed them to congregate around him, and in a move that shocked everyone, he unmasked himself and greeted the cameras for the first time as Benjamin Fodor.
I'm Phoenix Jones. I'm also Ben Fodor. I also protect the city. I also am a father. I also am a brother. I'm just like everyone else.
Born in Texas in 1988, Benjamin Fodor spent time in orphanages before finding a family and relocating to the Pacific Northwest.
Hells yeah.
Benjamin and his brother Karos both shared a love of fighting. Each pursued competitive mixed martial arts at a young age. According to Tapology.com, Benjamin, who fought under the name Flat Top, boasted an impressive amateur record of 11 wins and no losses. But whereas his brother continued into the professional ranks of organizations such as Strikeforce and UFC, his younger brother Benjamin decided to put his skills to more unconventional uses. But aside from the martial arts background, the conditions which stemmed the most well-known real-life superhero couldn't have been more unassuming. Benjamin was a father of 2 working at a daycare for children with special needs. His origin story goes like this. One morning, Benjamin found his car broken into, his driver's side window shattered, and a black ski mask laying atop the broken glass on the street. His son, cutting himself in the glass, had to be taken to the emergency room. Phoenix kept the mask, and days later, when a close friend was assaulted outside of a nightclub while a group of spectators watched, too afraid to intervene, Phoenix decided the ski mask would serve as the basis for an alternate identity. A moniker was chosen. The word Phoenix has roots in Greek folklore associated with rebirth. Jones, one of the most common
Rise from
American
the
last
ashes,
names,
bitch.
is meant to represent the notion that ordinary citizens can hold others accountable for their actions.
It's true.
His costume was commissioned from Extreme Design FX.
Okay, I'm sorry, guys. Gotta pause this and go to dinner. I'm sorry. I'll see you in a bit. I'm going to stop this recording here tonight.